Good evening, everyone. Pleasure to be here once again. Rabbi Schiff and I did not discuss what we're going to be talking about this evening, but it worked out, I think, very nicely because even though his words is very inspiring and deep words could certainly be applied to all areas, but essentially they're more focused on the mitzvahs that we do, the specific acts that relate mostly to our relationship with God, and the mitzvahs that we do, which are called ben Adam l'makom, between the Jew and between HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm going to a little bit more focus on ben Adam l'chaver, so I guess before the evening's over, and Moshe, of course, sort of focus on the general concept of taking that first steps. Hopefully we'll cover all of the aspects this evening. But again, I want to thank the Rabbi, just to echo the sentiments. Baruch Hashem, it's always a pleasure being in this home, and should continue to be a home. L'shem u'teferes, only simcha, nachas, mitzvos, and kiddush Hashem, Bez Hashem. Well, just taking that first step, and this idea of this, the kinnis tshuva, and that's the word we're hearing, Shabbos tshuva, drasha, kinnis shel tshuva, and tshuva, it is a little bit of a scary word. And the whole notion of getting closer to God and somehow making changes in our lives, it does conjure up a little bit of level of discomfort. And Chavetz Chaim writes in the Mishabur, and the Mishabur is, it's a halachic sefer. It's not a Kabbalah sefer. It's not a Mussar sefer. But the Chavetz Chaim takes a little bit of a sort of a deviation from his typical tone and typical focus when he says that the reason why, come Shabbos afternoon, we're going to read Maftir Yonah, this beautiful book about Jonah running away from God and not wanting to go to Nineveh, and the whole story that we're somewhat familiar with. Why are we reading that particular part of the Navi for the Haftorah of Mincha, which is just hours away from the culmination of Yom Kippur? It's got to be, you want to sort of hit you with the your strongest message. What's the message here? And he says, the Chavetz Chaim writes, the message of Yonah is a very profound one, and this is certainly, there are other messages and there are other things you can take away, but this is one that he says is a reason why the rabbis chose Maftir Yonah. Because there are Jews, he says, that say, and I've heard it, and I'm sure we've all heard it in this room, maybe we've even said it along the way, but for sure we've heard it from other people along the way. Don't talk to me about change. I'm not changing. I'm very comfortable with who I am and what I am, and I'm not changing. And I don't care, even if I'm going to go into my grave the way I am, I'm totally comfortable with that. So I'm not interested in changing, so don't talk to me about change. And the Chavetz Chaim writes, and he writes this on his lower commentary in the Shara Tzion. It's not in the classic Mishabru, but essentially it's the same sefer, it's the same point, and he's saying, and the rabbis want to remind us of something, and Maftir Yonah reminds us of something, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Jonah very, very clearly, I have a plan for you, and whether you like it or not, you're going to follow through with this plan. And I don't care how much you run away, and how much you run into boats, and how much you might even hang out in the stomach of whales, you're going to end up doing what I want you to do, because that's my destiny for you. And therefore, what's the message for us? The message is, you better do it now. You better fulfill your mandate, your mission, your purpose in life now, because if you don't do it now, you're going to do it. If I have to bring you back once and twice, and this is where he sort of gets very Kabbalistic, very mystical, a little spooky, because we don't really like talking about Gilgulim and coming back, and and after reincarnation. That whole concept is a little bit of a sort of unfamiliar territory. And the Chavetz Chaim again does not throw Kabbalistic ideas into his halachic sefer, but here I guess it's just very basic that we are put into this world to effectuate some change in terms of who we are, to reach a certain goal of what we're supposed to accomplish. And it's much easier to do it now, because if you have to go schlep, and he says, you want to die and then you got to come back and be born again, and like it's very, very atypical. He really gets very spooky on us, and he says you don't want to do that because you got to deal with the whole once is enough. Get the job done. The Baruch Hashem, you can as Rabbi Schiffman alluded to and said very clearly, you got eternity, you got the ultimate reward waiting for you. So get it done right now, so you don't have to keep schlepping back again and again and again. So the message is, there is a clear purpose for why we're here in this world. And it's a little bit scary when you think about that, because, well, what does that really mean? Oh my gosh, so, am I in the wrong job? Am I in the wrong profession? This is and I don't think that's really the ultimate essential point of our purpose. Our purpose, as was said before, is to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Our purpose is to make improvements in our lives. And our purpose is to better ourselves. Not to make quantum leaps. The very fact that somebody's in this room right now already says about themselves that they are unique Jews. You could be in a lot of other places, and you can certainly be at Monday Night Football with all the complaints about the national anthem, right? And you can and you can be doing other things. Okay, if just whatever, just reading a good book, you chose to be here. So right away, we're talking about serious people. We're in a room of serious Jews. Okay, so we're not talking about quantum leaps of massive overhauls of our internal spiritual system. Because Baruch Hashem, you people are in a pretty good place. But the message is that for us is that any small, profound movement in the area, and particularly of midos, and this is where I'd like to focus upon, because the idea of advancement, and again, Rabbi Schiffman gave us the perspective of how we can improve our B'nai U'Makom, how doing a mitzvah could be elevated by our focus. But I don't think anybody has any problem in asking themselves, is there any area in our character where we can improve? Is there any area in terms of our humility, or our haughtiness, or our anger, or our jealousy, our resentment, or all of the various character traits that we have in our lives, and how we relate to the people around us, to our spouse, to our children, to our parents? Is there any area of improvement? Can we not get a little bit softer, a little bit sweeter, a little bit kinder, a little bit gentler, just a little bit? That little bit, that could be the quantum leap. And it is so significant in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's eyes that becomes, if that becomes the sort of the anchor of our focus in our lives, no matter what else we're doing, and we can do doing a lot of incredibly big things, but that so-called little thing of actually looking to ourselves, becoming a different person very subtly in the area of midos, in the area of character development, that's huge. There is a famous Gra, and the Gra maybe only lived 250 years ago, but really everyone says he's like a Rishon. He's like the Ritva. He's like people in that time, as Rabbi Schiffman was saying, of 1,000 years ago or so. And he writes on a pasuk in Mishlei, an incredible statement. And the Gra, anybody who sort of, if anybody went to yeshiva, you sort of heard about the Gra, and he was sort of this venerated, rabbinic figure that not only was he out of his generation in terms of his brilliance, but he was, when you think of the Gra, you just think of pure Torah. A man who was immersed, they say, he averaged about 2 hours a night of sleeping, and a whole regimen of taking 15-minute naps throughout the day. What he wrote about, the area of his depth and the breadth of his knowledge and understanding, and the depth of his profundity, and the students that he produced, it's off the charts, just not imaginable. And yet he writes a statement about, on a pasuk in Mishlei. The pasuk says, "Hachzek b'musar al taref," grab onto instruction, self-instruction, self-advancement, do not let it go. Nitzrah, guard it, kihu chayecha, because it is your life. It's a very famous Gra that's spoken about. Almost all the Baalei Mussar quote this Gra. And the Gra says that the purpose that why God put us in this world is to become better people in terms of our character, to advance, to polish, to perfect, and to improve our character as we go through life. And that's really the beauty, because there really is no point that a person can ever say, I sort of done it all. In fact, that's why when I think it was Chaim Friedlander, the great Mashgiach in Panovich, who was told by the doctors, you've got a few weeks left to live. He just recently, maybe in the last decade, last 20, 15 years or so, he passed away. I don't remember the exact year, but it's relatively recently. And he went to Rav Shach Zatzal, the great Rosh Hashiva. And the Gadol Hador, and the leader of Klai Yisrael, he went to Rabbi, he says, they only gave me, and this is a man already, in his probably mid-80s, and a massive Gaon on his own right, and certainly one of the pillars of Musar that we had in Eretz Yisrael. And he says, Rabbi, I have about 2 weeks left to live. The doctors are giving me very little time. So what should I do? What should I focus in on? And you think, well, take out this Kabbalistic sefer and analyze and get into the deep recesses so you can soul, could buy. I mean, and these are the highest level people with such incredible connections to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, pick a midah, pick a character trait, and just try to refine it a little bit more. Get a little bit better in it. You tell a Gadol Hador, 85 years, a man's giving shmuzim in Panovich for 40 years, and this is what you're telling him? He answers, yeah, this is what and it's so enlightening in the sense of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at us becoming even so subtly better. The slight improvements in our lives in the era of Ben Omer Chavero. And he says, what the pasuk of Mishnah, what Shalom Melech is teaching us, is grab on to that concept of working on yourself, because that's why you're here. And if you're not working on yourself, he says words that you'd say can never come out of the Gro's mouth. It's not possible. Because when the pasuk says Q Chayecha, he just adds a little bit more. It's your life. What do you mean it's your life? Because if you're not working on advancing your character development, your quality, the traits of what makes you you, and to make them more purified and more pristine, he says Lama li chayim, Lama lanu chayim. What do we need life for? There's no purpose to life. No purpose to life. You've got all the shas to master. You've got kol Torah kula to learn. Okay, you can go to another depth. What do you mean? What's the point of life? And what the Gra is telling us, in no uncertain terms, is that with all the Torah that we need, and we have to learn Torah, we have to go to Shurim, we have to advance ourselves, we have to obviously do everything that the Torah tells us to do, including the mitzvahs that are l'mokum. Obviously, they're critical; they're not negotiable. And the more we can advance them, obviously, it makes it. We become different people. But at the core of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us is to get close to Him. And the closest way we can get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the only way is when it says Dveikus B'Hashem, when it talks about following HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ways, it's emulating God. Mahu Rachum, Afatah Rachum. Mahu Chanan, Afatah Chanan. The way to get close to God, in no uncertain terms, is to become a godly individual in terms of how we conduct ourselves, how we relate to people, how we avoid and remove jealousy from our hearts, how we don't speak lashon hara, how we are kind and we reach out to people and spend our lives trying to uplift the people around us as opposed to, God forbid, ignoring them or putting them down, whatever it might be. And that advancement is so critical. The Gemara says, I think maybe once I'm in this venue, I might have quoted this Gemara, but I think I focus on a different shot. But the Gemara says, very, very famous Gemara in Tainus, that it was a terrible famine, and there was no rain, and they asked the great Rabbi Elazar Gadol, the great Tana Rabbi Elazar, to pray on behalf of Klai Yisrael, and he prayed, and they said Tillim, and they went through the whole. There are certain procedures in the laws in the Gemara about what to do and what to daven and what Shemon Esrei is to say, and no rain, and he tried everything, and there was no rain, and they thought that they're finished, they're done. What are we going to do? They had no choice. They went to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Elazar was the perceived number one man of his generation. They asked Rabbi Akiva, listen, you're not number one, but listen, right now we're desperate. So please go up there. Right? Number two tries harder, right? So, we, what is it, Avis, right? So we try harder. So maybe, you never know. Maybe Rabbi Akiva, try a little harder. So they send Rabbi Akiva up there. He says, Avinu Malkeinu. He starts, this is the place where the Gemara actually introduced for the very first time the prayer we have that we say every day now of Avinu Malkeinu. And the rains came. And the famine was gone. And the Gemara says, so everyone was wondering, maybe we had a wrong estimation. Maybe the number one ranked rabbi of the world was really the number two ranked. And maybe we just misunderstood. And the Gemara and HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw that there was some rumblings about who was number one and who was number two. So he sent out a baskol, a heavenly voice that made it very, very clear. No. You guys had it right. Rabbi Elazar is the greatest man of his generation. But Rabbi Akiva had a certain quality about him. The Gemara says, what was his quality? Mavra Midosav. So conventionally, Mavra Midosav, which is also a very important point, is he let things go, no hold grudges, just let it be. Just be humble and not hold on to the animosity that sometimes we hold on to. That's one shot, and that's conventional. But many other commentaries say that Marav Midos about Rabbi Kiva is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what the Bas Kol was saying, that the difference between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Elazar is Rabbi Elazar grew up with that golden becher, so to speak, in his mouth. Okay, he had everything. He grew up in a house of royalty. There was kedusha from the moment he was born, from the moil to the sandik to the Shabbos table to everything around him. He was around the holiest, most special people in the world. So in that environment, how could you not be giving? How can you not be loving? How can you not be sensitive? How can you not be humble? You have everything. Everybody teach you exactly the way to be. And from the time you can say Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe, he was exposed to the highest level of kedusha, of sanctity. Rabbi Kiva was a very different person. Rabbi Kiva looked at a Talmid Chacham before he started moving in a different direction. When he met his wife Rachel, he wanted to kill him. He wanted to kill a Talmid Chacham. He had a disdain, okay, for rabbis. He grew up in a house where the atmosphere was the exact opposite of what Rabbi Elazar's atmosphere is. So his Mav Rabbi Dosov meant, the way the other commentaries explain it, is that he had to push himself. It wasn't easy for him. And if he had to push himself, he had to overcome so many negative traits that were ingrained from his negative generations of the past. And his whole atmosphere was really one where he had to really fight so hard. You fight hard, you push yourself, you overcome something. You're not ready to just sort of say, I am who I am. You know what? And that's just the way I am. Don't talk to me about improving. Don't talk to me about becoming nicer, more sensitive. Work on your anger. Work on your jealousy. Work on your negativity. Work on your chesed. When somebody knocks on your door, instead of just the smallest thing of how you look at them. And and I've heard it from many people over the years, where the check is secondary. I know it's hard for us to believe that, but they swear to it. The check is secondary. It's how the person receives them at the door. It's whether you sit them down and you just give them the 30-second time a day, maybe even offer them a glass of water. That speaks so much more to them. And it makes so much more of a difference. You can imagine when you have to knock on somebody's door and your whole family's back in Israel and you want to be schlepping from here to here in Los Angeles and then from Chicago and New York and all over, and you want to sit there and ask for money. You know what it does to a person? I can probably take out their kishkas. I'm not talking about the professional ones who do it for a living, but maybe it's a choice. But more often than not, it's not a choice. It's a matter of circumstances that has brought them to this place. And however we might agree or disagree with their circumstances in terms of their decisions, to have that feeling that I can make a difference in this person's life and actually give them a smile and give them a little bit of a sort of pep. Hey, this person treated me nicely. It's not so bad. It's okay. The subtlest things can make such a difference in a person's life. So the Gra is telling us there is no other purpose in life. All the Torah that we learn, all the mitzvahs that we do, ultimately it's tzarev esabrios, the Gemara said, it's to make us better people. And therefore the idea that there is nobody in the world who can say, maybe we might say, I don't want to change. But there's nobody who can say, I have no place to change. I have no room to change. I am Mr. Perfect. There is no weakness. There is no character flaw. We can just ask our spouse, and I'm sure we'll get the right answer about that, if we're not 100% sure. But, so that's a beautiful concept, because it's not about I've taken on a lot and, I'm doing all my mitzvos, I'm really good where I am, but there's always a little bit of room, a tiny bit of advancement we can do in terms of B'noma Chavero. And it will serve us so well especially this time of year, when we're fighting for our lives. And as Rabbi Schiffman pointed out, how dramatic the time is, as Yom Kippur is fast approaching. I also got a little bit nervous when he quoted the pasuk, but I said, I didn't think he was going in that direction. Baruch Hashem, he didn't. But it's amazing how we ended up with the exact same pasuk, where I'll just quote the second part of those verses that he quoted in this parsha. Parshas Azinu. Kela Muna Vein Avel Tzadik V'Yasherhu, we just read. And what does that mean? Kela Muna Vein Avel. I mean, it's a big deal to say that God is trustworthy and has no iniquity. I mean, I would hope God doesn't have any iniquity. What do you mean, vein of it? What do you mean he doesn't sin, he's not perverse, he doesn't do any tzaddik v'asher, he's straight and he's righteous? Okay, I mean, maybe it's a nice thing to say, but vein of it? I mean, he's God. He should be perfect. He is perfect. What do you mean vein of it? What do you mean there's no iniquity in God's ways? I saw Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, quoted by many of the Bali Musa, but they all quoted back to Rabbi Yisrael. An incredible idea. And it's something that I always felt intuitively, but to see it in print made me, because it's something that we can all do. It's really, and it gives us, I wouldn't call it life insurance policy, but it certainly enhances our chances. It raises the bar in terms of Baruch Hashem, how we could be in a better position vis-a-vis God. Who doesn't want to be in the best position possible? Says Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, you know what it means to say that God has no avel, no iniquity? It means that when something befalls a person, it doesn't just befall that one person. We know never. If somebody's in the hospital, everybody's affected. The spouse is affected, the kids are affected, the school is now rallying around the situation, and we know the ripple effect. So when God, Rahman Litzlan, gives that person that particular challenge, all of the people impacted in that person's life are by definition impacted by that particular challenge. It's not in a vacuum. So, is that fair? And the statement is, yeah, it's fair. HaKadosh Baruch Hu calculates what every single person needs. So if there's a challenge that has a ripple effect in affecting 20 different people, God calculates that all those 20 different people, it'll only happen when the ripple impact is commensurate to what that person needs to get. We shouldn't need a wake-up call, but when HaKadosh Baruch Hu does give us, and it should be soft and sweet, but when we get a wake-up call, it's because we need the wake-up call, because somehow it's our benefit. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu calculates that wake-up call to the level that each person is impacted, and it's perfect to that individual. But in a way, he says, if you have more people impacted, it becomes harder for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So let's say, for example, God's got 19 people figured out, but that 20th fellow, or that 20th lady that you know who's going to be impacted by this particular challenge is in a good place, doesn't deserve anything. God doesn't say, well, that's it. I'm just going to throw in for good measure and tough lady. I know you don't deserve this, but you know what? I got to get this guy, give this guy this challenge. So I'm in number 20. He's going to have to. No, it doesn't work. Ain't novel. No. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not do that. There's no iniquity with God. God is perfect in the way that He calculates everything, and the more people you have connected to your life in a positive way, the more people that rely on you, the more people that are uplifted by you, the more people that receive benefits from you, the more people that you are in any way impacting, gives you a greater sense of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now you got 1,000 people to worry about. So you gotta keep me good, you gotta keep me safe, you gotta keep me protected, because it's not just one person or 5 people, 10 people, right? When you're living in a cocoon, okay, it's not so hard to send that message to 5 people. If you're a Weltmensch, you're a klal person, you're a person who goes around impacting positively so many people around you, then that changes God's calculations. And God is ein avel. There is no iniquity. God will not in any way affect a change and affect an impact unless it's deserving to every single person in that chain. So says Rabbi Yisrael how important it is for us to be that klal person, to be that giving, loving, uplifting, connecting individual, because the more people that we can connect to, and it could be sometimes in such subtle ways, that in a way is our protection. It's a great asset to have on our side. And the ultimate thing he says, and it's with this I'll end, because it's something that again we say every day, and we're certainly going to say it again in Yom Kippur, and if we can keep this in mind for the whole week and take this message of Rabbi Yisrael throughout the rest of the year, in terms of this concept of working on ourselves. And again, the best way to do it in his way was, he always recommended 10, 15 minutes. If you can open up a book a day, every single day, and look and read a little bit about what our purpose in life is, and a little bit about ourselves, and are we sort of fulfilling our mandate about our quality, our character traits, the quality of our relationships. If we can do that, it's so impactful. But he said, we say the words of Chen L'chaim every single day, and this is what we want. We want life. Why do we want life? So some of us want life because we just want to live. We're afraid, right? We just walk around fearful of negative things happening to us and to our family. So Chen L'chaim, Melachafitz b'chaim v'kazveinu b'sefer chaim. Please, God, inscribe us into the book of life. But that would be As Rabbi Shifrin said before, why? Why do you want it? If you want it because you want to live, okay, listen, everyone wants to live, but that's why? I should give you this incredible gift because you just want to live? Because you sort of just don't want to leave this world? A little hollow. So we end the words, L'mancha l'kim chayim. No, God, I don't want to live just to live. You're right. What kind of chutzpah do I have to say, I want to live? I want to live. What do you have a right to demand or even ask for life from God? But when you say those last words, L'mancha l'kim chayim, I want to do it for you, God. I don't want to do it for me. Give me the chance to live so I can live my life for you. So I could impact people in a positive way. So I could come closer to you. That I can do the mitzvos. Bein odom l'makom, as we heard earlier, and bein odom l'chavero. If I am getting closer to you because I've become somewhat less jealous, somewhat less envious, somewhat less angry, I've worked a little bit on my anger management. You know what? I get angry a little bit less. Things don't bother me as much. That's getting closer. That's l'mancha l'kim chayim, because that's our way of being mizdamet HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's our way of emulating. When we emulate in the spiritual world, that's how we get close. In the physical world, it's proximity. In the spiritual world, it's similarity. When we become similar to God in the way we are moving our lives in a more holy direction, that's how we get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why, in a sense, it really is. It's so. I've joked many times. Whether I enjoy a sports event or I enjoy going to Yosemite and to Bryce and to Zion, in a way, I sort of grabbed all those trips. I don't have to. When you go with yourself, you can debate. You should have been learning. You need such a long vacation. When you go with kids, you go with high school kids. It's on the job. Right? It's on the company card. So it's a credit card. It's like when you're on a business, you're on a business trip and you take meals, right? You don't have to pay for that. The business covers it, because even though it's a delicious meal, it's not coming out of here because I'm working for the company. So when you're working for the company and you get a little pleasure, God doesn't count that, because what? You shouldn't enjoy Zion. I'm taking 100 kids to Zion. What do you want? I shouldn't enjoy it. So God said, yeah, you can enjoy that. Okay? That's okay. Rabbi Saul says that. Rabbi Saul says that. That's the one place you can have benefit, because it's on the company bill. It's fine. Okay, so if you take kids to a ball game, or whatever you're doing, you're enjoying it, it's okay. But you also take care of a bunch of kids too. You obviously got a big responsibility, and you're doing something very important. But you're doing it for l'mancha l'kim chayim. It's a whole different ball game. And that's where we, in a sense, by changing the quality of our focus, if it's l'mancha l'kim chayim, we get a lot more leeway. And that's how we can ask Chazvenu b'sefer Chaim. Bez Hashem, if we can take the words that we hear tonight, these are words of Chazal, these are words of truth that our rabbis have taught us, the words of Moshe, of Rabbi Siegel, my son Moshe, who I'm so excited is now living here. It's really a special honor for us to be able to have him in our community. The amazing words of Rabbi Schiffman, the words of the Gra, the words of, if I'm not working on my midos, Samali Chaim, what incredible words. The words of Keil Amunah Veinovel, Kadosh Baruch Hu, there's no iniquity. So if I can have a lot of people sort of schlepping on my coattails, and they sort of need me for whatever I'm doing. Somebody's packing up Tomchei Shabbos. That adds, what kind of cheshbon does it add? I'm necessary. A lot of people are relying on me. I got 50 families every Shabbos relying on me to pack up their bags and deliver their boxes. That's huge. That's not a small thing. One person chooses, one person doesn't. That's so. Somebody's a Tzollah member. We know what that does in terms of their stock in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world. You just raised your stock unimaginable, because you're now necessary. People need you. When somebody has a problem, you're there. 17 seconds, you're at the door. It's incredible. All these people, they seem like simple Jews, but they're not simple at all, because they're living a life l'mancha l'kim chayim. We can all do that. We can all find our niche, to find that particular place, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to uplift the people around us. Bez Hashem will be a great source. Us, our community, Bez Hashem, all of Klal Yisrael should be kosvenu b'sefer chayim l'mancha l'kim chayim.